Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Stephen Sterling. Once again, today we're going to be continuing on from the previous discussion about vulnerability management. Admittedly, I've had to refresh myself from what was discussed, but just from the top of my head, I do recall discussing the types of remediation that can occur when a vulnerability arises. So what sort of actions can be taken to address an issue within the environment that needs to be addressed. The types of assets that you can expect to find. In a nutshell, what's an ICS and OT is. So an industrial control system and operational technology. A general overview of how a corporation structure can look like for a technology team or a technology department. In this particular case, we're looking at the potential for a vulnerability on something like a Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux server with OpenSSH as the vulnerability. Now, this is a bit of a generalization. It's highly doubtful that you'll see a vulnerability, especially on one of the vulnerability scanners as discussed here. It's very unlikely that you'll see a vulnerability pop up and it's just basically stating the service. That normally it will have a lot more information than that, and it will also come with a corresponding CVE number. Now, for those who don't know, and you've probably come across this before, you've probably heard of the term, I'm going to draw this one, why not? CVE. And this is, we'll actually type this. Will let me. Common vulnerability. Probably going to misspell this. And exposures. Common vulnerability and exposures. And this is just a means of tracking and managing vulnerabilities and the information contained within them. It's very common that you'll see something like this. You'll see CVE number, not F, along with, because obviously this isn't the number, you'll see something like that, let's say 2025. Yeah, why not? And then I believe it will be in the order that it's in, something like that. So it'll be something like 2025 with a dash beforehand as well. 2025 102, so it's a 30, something like that. And so this is a CVE number. And as well as this, obviously, I'll come back to that. Obviously, there's a lot to go through, and there's going to be a lot of vulnerabilities. There's different ways to categorize them and build a sort of hierarchy, because really, if you've got a series of vulnerabilities affecting your environment, you're not necessarily going to be able to deal with all of them at once. I can't imagine any company, any organization out there is going to have the resource to be able to deal with absolutely everything very quickly. It is going to take some time, and so there is a hierarchical structure to the way that vulnerabilities are dealt with, hence the name specifically vulnerability management. So it is essentially the management of vulnerabilities, not necessarily the patching of it, not necessarily just the remediation. I want to do something a little bit different now, because I'll come back to this in a short bit, because I want to be a bit more conceptual without oversimplifying the issue. So let's see if I can draw this. I hope I'm going to get a good picture with this. Let's assume we've got I have no idea what this is going to create. It could create an animal for all I know, but we'll see. supposed to be a castle, so let's hope and pray. Who's the best one? Our castle's a wall. Yeah, let's say that one. Yeah, I like that one. So this is our castle. And 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2. So there's our castle, and we've got, let's say, a gate. I wonder if it's going to do this. Something like that. Is it going to do it? So this is the castle, and this can be the gate. Yeah, okay, so we've got what we need here. Got the castle, and we've got the gate. Make it a bit smaller. And then we'll draw a perimeter around. If you imagine a castle, imagine most countries have a castle. Even America has got castles, it's got forts, which is pretty damn close. So we all get the principle. You have a structure or a location with assets within that you want to protect. That can either be people, it can be objects which are determined as valuable in terms of a fort. That could be weapons, it could be money, it could be solid gold, it could be food or provisions, etc. These are things that we need in order to survive or to gain some form of an advantage. So we want to protect that. And we're going to have some people as well. And my God, this is going to be quite complicated to draw. Let's just draw a stick man. Keep it simple. I didn't mean that simple, but he kind of looks like a. There you go. He's got a sword. Let's pretend he's got a bat, but he's got a sword in Mars. So here we are. We've got soldiers, and they're on the wall. They can be on the wall. We've got our soldiers, and some of them can be scattered around. Here we are. They're defending the castle. Some on the wall itself, and the gates, protecting it. And then, how on earth do you draw a king? I don't know, let's try. It's probably just going to give me an anime character, but we'll see. I'm not too precious about this, we'll just use whatever's closest. Here we go, this person looks like they're on top of the world, so that's the king. It somewhat looks like a crown, like a chess piece. Anyway, here we are. Maybe I should have just used chess pieces. So this is the king, and they'll have their lords in there as well. So they'll have some other people as well. The lords, they're in the castle, and they're all there making decisions and doing yoga or whatever the hell they're doing in there. So there we are, they're all just vibing. Now this is a little bit too blue, so I want some other colours. Obviously, wherever you see blue, you're going to see red. You have a cooler red. We've got pink. It's close enough. Or evil red. So I want these guys again. Whoops. Yeah, I tell you what, get them in the shield wall. There we are. Get them in the shield wall. Get them blood red. Yeah, there we are. There's the evil ones. These are the guys who are trying to siege the castle, and they got their trebuchets and all this other stuff as well. However the hell you draw a catapult. Bear with me, guys. You're gonna see what I'm getting at here. And then, yeah, is it a catapult? And it's a scooter. We can go with that. It's a trebuchet. I'm not going to find this, am I? Oh, this is awful. This can be a trebuchet. Yeah, there we are. Lawnmower, that can be a trebuchet. Why not? Yeah, it's facing the wrong direction, but it's not anymore. There you go, we got a trebuchet.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it.
So now we've got what we need. We've got weapons and we've got targets and soldiers. Here we are. And we'll copy these guys and make some more. There we go. Big force, big enemies now. This is not what we want. It's the same principle. This is our network. This is our gateway to the internet. So this can be, let's just use technical language. So this is our router. This is, we're going to use a different color. This is yellow. This is our router right here. And it can be our switch behind it, etc. We could have the switch here. We could have our switch. This part, this guy, just whichever, I don't know. I'm not trying to go too deep in with this. I'm just trying to give an overall understanding of vulnerability management. So this is a rough, very, very basic networking, like child level networking lesson. So you're routing your switch, and so what will happen is when you get traffic, legitimate traffic come through, which we also need. Another stick mum. Let's say normal traffic. This can be, sure, that'll do. Not too precious about it right now. It can be green. You know, we like green. Green's a good colour. No, it's not green. Okay, so this is legitimate traffic now. So you've got a couple of these guys, and they're all trying to get into the castle. And we want them to come in. You know, they bring trade, they bring prosperity, they bring money and goods, and also take things out of the castle as well, which is what we want also. And that way they can take it to places which are great, like the other kingdoms, etc. So the other networks. So that's what we've got. So you've got good packets here. These are network packets. And these guys want to get into the castle. And that's great. That's what we want. But we don't want these guys. These are the malicious threat actors sent by the evil king, or sent by whichever tyrant is trying to send them over, or whichever crazy ideological group is trying to send them over. This is our network, and we've got our, throw some random ideas in the databases, because we don't need to get that specific about it. We've got our databases, and to be fair, that's probably going to be the castle, because whatever's, well, this is going to be whatever's probably the safest kept. So let's say the vault underground, because generally the sort of information that you're carrying is going to be in a database, and you don't want to lose that data, especially if you're regulated and if there's certain governance practices that you need to follow. So throwing an example out there completely, in the UK we have the Financial Conduct Authority, and if you are dealing with client data, I mean it's many different things, but let's say for PCI DSS, etc., if you're dealing with payment card information and you're found to have bad practices and you're not following the guidelines, etc., and you have a breach, I don't believe there's fines for PCI DSS. I would have to double check that, but there's consequences and you don't want those. But for some of the laws in the UK and also for America and some other countries, there can be hefty fines involved, so it's not something you want to play around with. It does go at the very base there, in the cellar of the castle, so we want to protect that. Here we go. But these guys want to get in and they want to get that, and they also want to get out as well. They don't just want to cause trouble, or maybe they do, which is even worse, to be honest. In fact, I want to make this into a moat, because really, in a normal network, you can't get in unless you're already in the castle or within the network, or unless, wrong colour, whatever, not important, or unless there's another means of getting over, which there might be, to be fair. I don't want to overcomplicate this, but yeah, there's a moat. Let's pretend there's no moat. These are just the walls. Keep it simple. So in cybersecurity, you're going to have many teams, but I want to simplify this somewhat. So in the castle itself, where the lords are, you're not really going to have the soldiers. You might have some soldiers. And these are people who are going to not only be good fighters, but they're also going to understand the dynamics of security. And so within there, you're going to have your governance. So this is the governance team. Whoever would manage governance. Generally, I know it as governance, risk and compliance. Risk and compliance. Which I also know it as GRC. This is the boring stuff. You don't really want to do this, to be honest, guys, unless you're a pencil pusher. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all, but, you know, I'm more of a techie sort of bloke. So this is your governance, risk and compliance. These are the people who collect information about the castle, so they'll have an understanding just how many troops you've got. So they would be counting here. We've got about 3 troops on the castle. We've got about 3 troops on the wall, so we know that we're protected. We also know what sort of weapons they've got and how many people they've got. So there's your threat intelligence. We'll have scouts on the walls. That's going to be your, I should really add this, but you know, scouts on the walls. That's going to be your, I'm tempted to say vulnerability scanning, but not really. Probably more akin to threat hunting. Vulnerability scanning would be more along the lines of people meeting up within the castle. So the GRC team, but also anyone who's managing the vulnerabilities wouldn't specifically be this team. Could also be a technical team or a cybersecurity team, strictly speaking. But they would be doing vulnerability management, and then their scanner would be looking at the entire perimeter. So everything that's under the control of the king. If you imagine Simba, I can't draw a line, but I'm going to try. So if you imagine Simba and Mufasa, I think the name of the lion is, give me a lion. A frog. I know it's not, that looks like a tiger to me, but we're going to use it anyway, whatever. So we've all seen the Lion King. This is the king. In fact, he's the king. We just use animals, really. Whatever. He's the king. And so, like he says, this is beyond our borders. We don't look over there. We must never go there, Simba, as he says. So, you know, we're interested in this, but we don't manage that. We manage it indirectly. Now, obviously, you're going to have your other teams, you know, who builds the castle, who maintains the walls, who keeps them fixed. You know, these are warriors. These guys aren't, I'm certain they're not going to have sufficient skill to keep this towering megastructure standing for any length of time. So we'll have engineers and etc. And that's when you get your infrastructure teams, infra. You've got your network engineers, which I suppose would technically be someone who's just help keep the paths, dealing with the paths and the doors, etc. I'm getting a little too literal here, but I hope I'm painting a picture of what it all looks like and keeping it simple, because that's really the aim of the channel, to keep it all simple, make it highly easy to understand. So they would do the upkeep like this. In fact, I do want some of these people down there. Let's just pretend they're wielding a massive hammer, building the wall, because that's exactly how you build bleeding walls. And you guys can be yellow. Here we are. So you guys are constructing stuff. Whoops. Yeah, you'll be on the side of the wall and you're doing whatever you're doing. So these are the people that manage the overall upkeep of the castle. But we know this anyway, so that's fine. We don't want to go too deep into that. Just trying to build more of a picture. So we have the cybersecurity team. These are the technical teams. These are the people that actually understand the technology. Not that these guys don't, they most likely will, but these are the people that do more of the legwork. I also don't want to move the fact that there are people. I'm just going to use this, to be fair, because I just think it's better. Whoops. We also have people within the castle as well, and they need to be protected. So these are your staff, and they're going to do things like cook or clean or paperwork or make the castle look pretty. I don't know. Do whichever. They do all the other tasks, or they manage trade or something like that, or the finances, your finance teams, etc. And these are real people within the castle, so they do all this stuff. So now we've got an idea of what the infrastructure looks like. We've got the threat actors, we've got the edge of the network, and then you've got the actual infrastructure inside. And you can have many things in here. So you have your governance, risk and compliance. These are the people who will be collecting various bits of information. So I want a different color. Let's use orange. Even though I've already used orange, let's get a funky color. Let's get purple. Hopefully we can read this. Whatever, we're going with yellow then. So these people will want to collect metrics. They'll be analyzing risk. They will be making decisions. They will be collecting various bits of information. So like I mentioned before, they're going to know the number of troops that are on the walls, which is important. You want to make sure that each area of the castle is defended, because if this section, if he's went for a cigarette break for some reason, then we've got no one protecting this side of the castle wall. And maybe this gentleman over here happens to be very, very sneaky and he's just happened to creep in past the wall. That's a problem. That's a problem. So we don't know how we managed to do it. This is purely a representation, but things like this can happen. Or maybe a member of staff has decided to turn coat and is doing something a bit funky. So we need to have this information in hand. So these people are more of the decision makers, and I believe that these teams will be able to make decisions around their fields of expertise. But governance side, these are the guys that will make most of the decisions and deal with the stakeholders. So they'll deal with, let's assume this is the CEO. So they're not even in the GRC's team. This is the CEO. They'll be the ones who actively discuss with the king, and they share their feedback, the information they've gotten from their commanders, i.e. the infra network engineers, the SOC team, the cybersecurity, infosec team, whichever you want to call it. They get this information and then they feed it up to the decision makers, and then they also pass down those instructions that are given by the decision makers to members of the team so that they can actually make these things happen. Because this guy isn't going to know anything about IT. Assuming he's a CEO or something like that, maybe he knows how to operate a mobile phone or something along those lines, or his laptop, his MacBook. But he probably won't understand IT. That's our job. And then, like discussed before, we've got engineers, network engineers, infrastructure engineers, security engineers, which I completely forgot about. Engineers, but definitely worth mentioning. And these are the people with a little bit more hands-on expertise. See, the GRC team is going to know that we need a castle and that we need walls, and we need to know what sort of weapons they've got. If they don't have trebuchets, then we don't really need to have solid walls. We just need to make sure people can't climb them and get through them. But if they do have trebuchets, then we need something a bit stronger, else it's going to be pointless. There's no point having wood walls if they can just burn them. And it's about managing risk, you say, because you've got to remember as well that these materials, and it's the same within IT and cybersecurity, a lot of the platforms that we're using, especially if they're highly enterprise level, they're very expensive. The licensing costs for individual users, etc., and the upkeep, having the people who are skilled enough, so people with the competency to be able to manage them, these things are highly expensive. So, and especially in the economy today, I'm not sure what it will look like in a couple of years, but it's rough. So it's very, very important decisions that need to be made in this regard. So we need the information, And this is why these guys are so great, because they look at this and they help keep things moving. There's no point having an army if they're all just bunched up in the corner here. We need to have them spread about. We need to have them in places they need to be. We need to have them checking the right things, so actively monitoring the I don't really know what to call this part of the network, but let's say the other side of the network, some asset that needs to be taken care of. We need to make sure people are actively watching the databases, that we're actively monitoring our own staff to make sure that they don't turn coat and try and steal something or try and open the gates on our behalf. So there's a lot of decisions, a lot of important decisions which need to be made, but they also need information. They need to collect metric indicators, MI. So they need to collect information, because an issue with security in particular, which you will find, I think you'll hit quite hard at the beginning if you've never been in security before, if you've never done IT before. IT is fun. It's all fun and games, unless you get really busy and your responsibilities are huge, etc. But it's all fun and games. You get to build stuff, you get to make stuff, especially if you're a programmer, you get to just make loads of stuff, and it's cool, it's good stuff. And you want feedback, you really want feedback, and you get that feedback by things working. You can see the people walking into the castle and they're going where they need to go, and that's great, and there's happy faces, etc. But the problem with security is that really you can't see, you're not supposed to really get any feedback. You don't want to, you want to know these things, but you don't want anything to happen. You want to know that things are happening when they are happening, but you don't want them to happen. You might come to an agreement that, okay, it is possible that these people, and this is part of vulnerability management. So we acknowledge the fact that in this part of the wall, it's quite weak. So good thing this is red. So this part of the wall is quite weak. Some of the brick is coming down. We can't get up there. We can't spare the men, the engineers, to get over to there and fix it. They just don't have the time, or he's sick, etc. So we've got this issue here, and they just can't get there. There's nothing they can do about it. There's also a weakness in the wall here, and in the network. Let's give you some of ones as well. So we've also got a weakness here as well. So issues with the walls. There's a tunnel underneath as well, which is a problem. But luckily, the threat actors don't know about this. There's a secret tunnel that leads under the castle for people to get in and out of, and no one knows where that is. But they are aware that it exists. They just don't know where it is. So they'll be looking for it, and they're over here scouting the terrain, having a look around. That's a problem. That is a very, very serious risk, because all they need to do is find it. Maybe they need to break something down and get through there, but they can do that because it's not that difficult. If it's a critical, if it doesn't require a complex attack, they can get through that very quickly, very easily, and perhaps quickly, and then you've got a big problem. So that information is necessary, and a lot of it comes down to, I suppose, getting whatever information you can, and that is how you measure success in GRC and in cybersecurity. It is based upon the performance. Quick example, we know that we've got a gate here. We know the gate works, we know it opens and it closes, and we can determine the effectiveness of the gate based upon how many times it closes in a single day, or whether or not we've got a compromise in there by how many times a day it closes. So we know it closes, let's say, 50 times a day, so open closes 50 times a day. And then if it's opening a bit more than that, we can start to raise an eyebrow and say, okay, why is this suddenly jumped up? Is someone else coming in? Do we need to start strengthening the, let's assume there's a lobby behind there. Don't want to overcomplicate it, but there's someone doing checks behind there. Do we need to be a bit more cautious? Do we need more men on this wall and a bit less on this wall? Do we need them having discussions with people? Do we need more monitoring, basically? Do we have staff in the castle who have a few too many keys to areas of the castle? Do they have more keys than they need? Do they have access to file sharing platforms that allow them to send things out of the castle to legitimate people? So let's say a carrier pigeon. Do they have access to the carrier pigeons or the falcons, etc.? And they're able to send things out of the castle to this person here, and they shouldn't have that. And then we can look at the risk of that. Well, we've got a large proportion of these people who have access to the keys to that part of the room, and if one of them decides to turn coat, that's a problem, because now he can start sending out sensitive information that he has access to from the databases or from the treasury, etc., and start sending that out, or sending instructions out. I'm conscious for time, so I'm going to leave this here, but I'm hoping that this lecture has been interesting to you. I'm hoping that it shed a bit of light in a bit more of a relatable fashion to how vulnerability management works from a governance side, and just to give you a bit more of an understanding of what it looks like from a, let's say, dramatic perspective. I'm going to go a bit deeper into this next time, but we're also going to return back to the technical side and look at it from how vulnerability management actually works from a technical perspective. So stay tuned. If you found this informational and useful to you and it's added value to you, feel free to like and subscribe. If you have any comments that you'd like to add, by all means, get in touch. I'd certainly like to read them. But until then, take care of yourself and have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.